focusing on climate change this week, and today we want to discuss something that should be of concern to every person on this planet: sea level rise. It's one aspect of climate change. We want to give you a look at what sea level rise would look like and how it could change the geography of several American states. According to NOAA and the Census Bureau, the population of U.S. coastal communities grew from approximately 91 million people in 1970 to approximately 126 million people in 2010. That's about 40% of the total U.S. population. So let's look at just one coastal city and how sea level rise could affect it. This is central Charleston, South Carolina. This is where I was during Hurricane Dorian. As it is right now, the green showing low-lying areas, okay, that could be prone to flooding at this point. Now, here's what happens after 4 feet of sea level rise. A little more than 1 meter. And you can see flooding pushing through the northeastern and southwestern parts of the city. By 10 feet, the central part of the city is a little more disconnected. Take a look at that. Okay, little bits of land with a whole lot of water. Historic areas like the Customs House, the Citadel, if you know Charleston, totally submerged. But it's not just a problem for cities sitting on the Atlantic Ocean. Let's take a look at Philadelphia. This is South Philly and Camden, New Jersey, along the Delaware River. They sit nearly 60 miles from the ocean. Philadelphia is not a coastal city, but take a look at 4 feet of sea level rise. The dock areas of Philadelphia start to flood, along with bigger sections of Camden. At 7 feet, a little more than 2 meters, the Camden Aquarium and Rutgers University, both of their campuses are underwater. At 10 feet, about 3 meters, whole neighborhoods of South Philadelphia are gone, along with most of western Camden. Flooding pushes nearly to the sports complex, and in Center City, a river forms almost all the way to Independence Hall. All right, joining us now to talk more about this is Chris Emdin. He's an associate professor of mathematics, or in the Mathematics, Science, and Technology Department at Teachers College in Columbia University. Chris, to a lot of people, climate change is different things. It's hurricanes, it's droughts, it's fires.
Of course.
But sea level rise is a massive problem around the world, particularly in places where we have settled because there's water.
Yeah, I think the notion that we don't have to worry about these things if we are living in sort of urban areas, or if we're living, it's such a silly phenomenon. And what I'm glad about is that we're having conversations about this now, but it's always in the context of, like, this may affect the Citadel, this may affect the Statue of Liberty. But it's also about this may affect the people who live in those areas.
In those places.
And most importantly, a recognition that those who live in those areas are oftentimes those who are most socioeconomically disadvantaged.
Right.
And so they can't recover as quickly as those who would be able to, say, live on, the beaches of California.
Well, New Orleans in Hurricane Katrina is a perfect example, right?
Absolutely.
Some of us can sell our homes and go buy a home somewhere else, but some people live in those areas because they are flood prone and they get flooded. We have entire parts of the world like Bangladesh, which, a large portion of the population gets flooded out every year. How do we fix this? This is a massive infrastructure.
Well, this is not a a one fix phenomenon, right? I argue always that it takes multiple levels of things to do. I think the first thing we have to be able to do, which folks don't like having a conversation about, is focus on education and science education, and having young folks be able to be aware of these dynamics and sort of to create advocates in the next generation of young folks who will be affected by this.
Right.
The other piece is also to not shy away from engaging in a recognition of the political landscape here and how that impacts the decisions that are being made. I mean, just recently, we just heard about the rollback of the EPA emissions in California, as though that is something that may not affect sea level change, but has a direct connection to it.
Right.
So this is a large dimension kind of problem that requires a more broad way of looking at the issue. So there's not a fix-all, but it is one that requires a conversation about the urgency of it all, and also letting folks who would be affected be aware of the phenomena. I think as of right now, we don't have a scientifically literate enough populace in those spaces who know that if this goes down, you're directly affected. And if folks are aware, they make different decisions.
Cory Booker is going to be on my show later on this afternoon. Cory Booker and Kamala Harris have talked about climate justice.
Right.
There are two factors to this. There are frontline communities who are in the oil and gas sector who will be affected if we change the way we do things.
Right.
And there are other groups who are affected because they are poorer. They live in places that will be prone to flooding or drought or hurricanes or mudslides and can't do anything about that. We have to think of this as a social issue and an economic issue and a technological issue.
Yeah. And a preventative issue.
Yeah.
So I think part of the conversation about letting folks be aware of the dynamics is a recognition of its likelihood and a preparation for the effects while not waiting for it to happen. I think, and this gets right back down to the science, right? An understanding of the distinctions between weather and climate.
Yes.
If the weather's going on okay, it doesn't mean that climate change is not happening. It doesn't matter.
Weather's out your window.
Right.
Climate's the world.
Exactly. And if we have this more broad-based perspective and inform folks who will be directly affected, it helps us to be more preventative, but also helps us to be able to plan for the future more effectively.
But is it going to be us moving away from coastal places? Is it going to be us on stilts on houses? How should we be thinking about
I think
property values in coastal places go down?
Of course, we're dealing with that right now. We're dealing with folks who can't get insured on their homes because of these type of issues. And I think it's also a recognition of, we're resilient people. Like human beings are resilient. And so we'll find ways to navigate what happens when it happens, some better than others. But more information is necessary for knowing how to do it and also to understand the signs about what the next levels are. And then it also gets economic, right? So how do these communities who may be directly affected find ways in which they become a part of the economy that can solve the issue? So I think if we look at
Lots
it,
to talk about.
It's a lot.
Hey, MSNBC fans, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down there and click on any of the videos here to watch the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more MSNBC for free every day with our newsletters. Just visit msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up now.